No, guys, just give me a minute. We are just trying to on the projector here. Okay. So what is an exception? What is the general meaning, English meaning of exception? People used to say he is exceptional case or she is an exceptional case. Don't ask, he is an exceptional case. Did you guys see that movie called, what is that movie? 90 ml? That movie. Did you guys watch it? Even traffic police also asking, he will show the certificate. Doctor certified me for health purpose 90 ml. Is exceptional case. I'm just giving as an example. Okay, don't think 90 ml. It's an exceptional case. Exceptional means something may happen, may not happen. Don't go to doctor to get the certificate. Okay. So exception means it may happen, it may not happen. If exception happens, what should we do? If some exception is happening, what should we do? Exception handling is one of the powerful mechanism provided in Java. Why we are saying it's a powerful mechanism, we will discuss. It provides the mechanism to handle the runtime error so that the normal flow exception is the one which is going to happen at the runtime. Okay. There are two types of error. One is compilation error. Another one is runtime error. Compilation error, who is responsible? Compiler. Who will find out the compilation errors? Compiler is going to find the compilation errors. It's a compiler responsibility to find the compilation is like closing the bracket is missing or missing semicolon or space between the variable name or space between the class name. So these all belongs to what? Syntax related error. All these error will be found by compiler at the time of compilation of your program. So don't think I'm running the program. Don't think we are not compiling. We are also compiling the program. Before running it, what it will do internally, first it will compile, then only it will go for running. If there is any compilation error, it will not allow to run your program. If there is a compilation error, system will not allow to run your program. First you have to fix the compilation error, then you have to go for running your program. Now one type of error I'm saying that is going to happen at the runtime. Runtime errors, let me give you one example. Can we do division by 0? I think I already said, right? Okay, maybe in the previous one. Can we do division by 0? Is it allowed? Now, can you all open your calculator and try to do division by 0? What message it is giving you? It allows you to do what it will give. It will close the, it will terminate. I mean, it will close the calculator or it will display some message. Right? Just try to open. I'll say 10 by 0. What message it is saying? Cannot divided by. Is it understandable? The message is clearly specifying you cannot do division by 0. Is it clearly understandable? Right? So his computer, his calculator is closing because of I'm doing division by 0. Is it terminating? Terminating means closing your program or your application. Is it closing the calculator? No, it is not closing. It is happening at the runtime. Division by 0 is one example. I'll write one code. By mistake, developer or tester written a code. By mistake, they are adding a 0. Division by 0. Or I will ask the user to enter the two values. First value and second value. I would say first value divided by second value. By mistake, user is entering second value as a 0. Do you have a control here? It is up to user what user wanted to enter. If user is entering division by 0, this is called runtime error. Division by 0 semicolon, there is no error from the compilation point of view. There is no compilation issue. So what will it will do? It will allow you to run the program. When you run the program, what is happening? It is showing compilation Sorry, it is throwing runtime error. Exception is the one which is going to happen at the runtime. Whenever it is executing lines of code, it will check each and every line. Based on the line of the code, it is going to execute. Whenever it is finding an error at runtime, it will terminate your program. It is going to terminate your program. Did calculator terminate it? Because they handled the exception. They handled the exception and they showing the message cannot division by 0. Now here there are two types of errors. One is compilation, another one is runtime. Compilation, you don't have to worry. It will not allow to run. Don't worry, it will not allow to run itself if you cannot fix the compilation error. Then compilation issue is fixed. Then I'm trying to run my program. By mistaken, developer or a tester added a one line of the code division by 0. Let's say I have some 100 lines of code. I have 100 lines of code. In 100 lines of code, fifth line. Let's example, fifth line. Fifth line, they are putting it as division by 0. Let's understand fifth line. By mistake, developer put division by 0. Whenever program execution starts line by line. It comes to 1 execute till 4. It will come and execute line number 5. What are we doing in line number 5? Division by 0. There is an exception. Cannot do division by 0. This is the exception that is happening at the runtime. This is the exception that is happening at the runtime. After line number at the line number 5, it is finding an exception. It will terminate your program immediately, which means remaining 95 lines of code will not be executed. Up to line number 4 it will execute. Line number 5, there is a exception which is happening at the runtime. It will automatically terminate your program. It means you are not continuing normal flow of the execution. Normal flow of the execution means it should execute 100 lines of code, right? But what it is executing only 4 lines of the code. Fifth line, there is exception. It is terminating your program. So you need to handle the exception. That's what exactly exception handling. You need to handle the exception so that normal flow can be continued. So that normal flow of the application will continue. That's what it means to say that. It provides the mechanism to handle the runtime errors. Example I have given, runtime error is what? Division by 0. So that the normal flow of the application can be maintained. Normal flow means continuation execution. Due to some exception, it should not terminate my program. Due to some exception, it should not terminate my program. Okay. What is the meaning of exception? Dictionary meaning exception is a abnormal condition. It's not a regular condition. It's something abnormal condition. Example, division by 0 is what? Some abnormal condition here. In Java, exception is an event that disrupts the normal flow of the program. What it is disturbing here? Division by 0. It disrupts the normal flow of the program. It is an object. It is an object which is thrown at runtime. So whenever it sees an exception, it throws an exception. Every exception is a predefined class. How many classes we have? Two types, predefined and user defined. All the exception that is throwing at the runtime. What man, today full late, 20 minutes. All the exception that is thrown at runtime is a predefined class. All the exception it is throwing at runtime are a predefined classes. What type of exception it is? Division by 0. What type of exception it is? What type of transaction you are trying to perform? Division by 0, addition, subtraction, multiplication, arithmetic exception. Division by 0 means what type of transaction? Arithmetic transaction. So what exception it will throw? Arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception is one predefined class. Arithmetic exception is one predefined class. Always remember, all the exceptions that are throwing at the runtime are the predefined classes only. All exceptions what it is throwing are nothing but predefined class only. What is the advantage of handling the exception? What will happen if I don't handle the exception? If you don't handle the exception, what will happen? Program will terminate. That's what I explained, right? If you don't handle it, I said 100 lines of code, fifth line you are trying to do division by 0, which is typically an arithmetic. It is throwing an exception. So it's a normal flow of the application will not be maintained. Normal flow of the application will not be maintained. It will terminate your program and it closes your application. It means remaining lines of the code will not be executed. If you don't maintain the normal, if you want to maintain the normal flow, one option is you need to make sure there should not be any exception. What is an exception? Which occurs at the runtime. So you need to write a code so that it should not have any exception that no one can guarantee you. So second option is what? You have to handle the exception. If it is throwing an exception, you have to handle it. That is exactly meaning of exception handling. That's what we are saying, exception handling. What is an exception? Error that occurs at the runtime. Exception is an error that occurs at the runtime. You have to handle that exception. If you don't handle, what will happen? Your program will terminate. So it will not allow to continue normal flow of the application. That's the advantage of using a exception handling, right? Abnormal termination of the program, correct? So I'm just already explained. I said 100 lines of the code, but I'm just giving some 10 lines of the code. And let's say line number 6, there is an line number 5, there is a exception. I'm just giving an example. Line number 5, I'll put it as division by 0. Understand? Statement 5 is what? Division by 0. So whenever it comes to, let me put this otherwise. 10 divided by 0. 10 divided by 0. There is an exception in this particular line. What it is going to do? It is going to terminate my program. Remaining lines of code will not be executed. Okay. Now types of, you don't have to worry, consider only 2 types. One is compilation, another one is runtime. Okay. You don't have to worry about these nodes. Now, common scenarios of exception handling where exception may occur. Now scenario, the first one is what? Are you guys able to see from backside? Or do you want me to increase the zoom? Is it better? Yeah, okay. So the first example I'm giving, scenario where arithmetic exception occurs. If you divide any number by 0, if you divide any number by 0, now I'm saying int a equal to 50 by 0. It is a exception. So what type of exception? Arithmetic exception. When it comes to execute this line, when it comes to execute this particular line, what type of exception it is throwing? Arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception is what? One predefined class. Arithmetic exception is one predefined class. One example where runtime. Second one, null pointer exception. String. I'm saying string s equal to null. Am I storing any value for string here? I'm storing what? Null. Null means does it have any value? Nothing. When I say s dot length, s is what? One variable of string. So when I say s dot length, length is what is the function? Length, predefined function, right? What is the job of the length? It will give you the length of the string. It will give you length of the string. So does it has any string there? What you are putting? Null. You are putting null and you are saying get the length. Do you think it will work? So what exception it is throwing? Null pointer exception. What it is going to throw? Null pointer exception. Null pointer exception is what? Predefined class. Arithmetic exception, division by 0. Arithmetic exception, predefined class. Null pointer exception, predefined class. Now let's take this parsing. Parsing in the sense converting one data type into another data type. I declared some variable of int. Now I wanted to convert that integer into double or float. If you wanted, you can convert it, but most of the time we never use it in our automation. Don't worry about it. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm saying string s equal to abc. S is what? A string. I'm putting some value. Now I cannot convert string into the integer. You have an option. One data type can be converted into another data type. What data type I am having here? String. What is the value? ABC. What I'm trying to do, I wanted to convert string into integer. I wanted to convert string into integer. Do you think you can convert string into integer? No. So this is a syntax to convert. Integer dot parseInt means you're trying to convert this s into integer. So what it is going to give you? Number format exception. Number format exception when you cannot convert when you cannot convert one data type into another data type. If you cannot convert it, it is going to throw what? Number format exception. Naukri, I searched manual testing, what it is not showing. It is not showing. That day it was showing so many openings, right? Yeah, I'll just remind me. I don't know what is his name, Kotte or whatever. Just try to remind me before closing the program. I mean class. I'll try to explain you. I'll show it. That day I already showed you. Let's see it again. Okay. Now you have another example for array index out of bounds exception. What do you mean by this? Is array index out of bounds is one predefined class. Array index out of bounds is one predefined class. So what is my array size? Give me the examples of number form. Yeah, we'll discuss with examples. Don't worry. Sorry. What is the size of array here? What is the size? 5. Where I am trying to store the value? A of. What is the size of array? Maximum 5. How many values I can store? What is the last value? 4. Where I am trying to store? A of. Do you think you have a of 10 location? First location is what? 0. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. Minus 1. Size minus 1. Because it starts from 0, it is going to end with the 4. What I'm trying to do? I'm trying to store a value in A of 10. Do you think do you have any memory allocated for A of 10? Can you store that value? By mistake, I'm not looking at size of array, but what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to go to A of 10 where there is no memory location called A of 10. So what it will throw an exception? Array index out of bounds. Array index out of bounds exception, because there is no memory location. It immediately it takes the number called 50 and it goes to the memory location to store it in A of 10. But there is no memory location allocated for A of 10. That's why it is going to throw what? Array index out of bounds exception. Okay. Now let's try to understand the mostly interview asked question. What is the superclass? I'll give you the question later. You can note down. First, let me explain. After that, you can make a note. Okay. You have a class called throwable. Throwable. Okay. Throwable has two classes in it. Okay. One is exception class. Okay. I don't need to write exception. And another one is error. One is exception. So throwable is a superclass. Under throwable, you have two subclasses. One subclass is exception. Another is error. One is exception. Another one is error. So you just make a note, hierarchy of exception classes. Make a note, hierarchy of exception classes, and make a diagram of this one. Okay. This should be, otherwise just give me a minute. I'll put it in paintbrush. So you have one class called, this is a class. Don't note down, just look at this diagram. Later you can diagram. Now I have one more class under this. I have one class called exception. I have one more class called error. This class is exception. Okay, this class is error. Now these two classes, right? What is that? This is not going, man. Okay, this down arrow key, where is, okay. This down arrow key. This exception class created by using the exception. Sorry, I will change. It's not exception, it's throwable. Okay. I don't know how to edit it. Just why it's not allowing to edit. It's always selecting the A. That is the problem. A. Okay, I'll write on top of it. To save the time, how to delete it? It's not allowing. Crap also. Huh? Erase. Where is that erase? Huh? Which one? It's being long. I had not used paintbrush. So. Cut also it is not allowing, right? Okay, just leave it. I'll just put it this way. Throwable. Just put it as a throwable. Some people open new file. Again, I have to draw. No, I'm opening. Again, I have to draw everything. That's why take eraser. Where is the eraser? Can you guys show me? Pink color. This is the eraser. Oh, okay. This is the eraser. Okay. Like childhood days, we were learning paintbrush. Okay. Throwable. Just note down this diagram. Don't put this one. Just note down. Throwable is a class under which you'll have exception class. Under that, you'll have error class. By the way, you have a question, just try to put it in a chat window. I'll try to answer it. Okay. Done. So mostly interview asks question, what is the super class for all the exceptions classes? Answer is throwable. Make an interview ask question. Make interview ask question. What is the super class? What is the super class? What is the super class for all the exception classes? What is the super class for all the exception classes? Answer is throwable. You see it here. Throwable is the super class for all the exceptions. So I'm just trying to give you the inheritance concept, what they have used here. So exception class extends throwable. Error class extends throwable. So under exception, now error, ignore it. We never ever use it. So you can just ignore it. You don't have to worry about it. Exception class we use. Now I said how many types of exception I threw. I mean, not types of example. One is arithmetic exception. Another one is array index out of bounds exception. One is number formatting exception. One is null pointer exception. All those are the subclasses which comes under exception class. See, now if you want me to diagram, I cannot, there are so many classes which comes under exception. Now a simple example to say that, now this is one class, okay, and this is another class, this is another class, this is another class. All these classes, all this example I'm telling you, this is nothing but I'm just putting AE. AE means arithmetic, because I cannot write entire thing here. Now second one is null pointer exception. I'm putting NP, null pointer exception. You also have one more thing called array index out of bounds. AI array index out of bounds, one more class. And one more class, called number formatting. Number format. What is exception? That is number number format exception. All these all are all the predefined exception classes. All the predefined classes which are coming under a predefined class called exception. It means arithmetic exception extends exception class. Null pointer exception extends exception. Array index out of bounds exception extends the exception class. Null pointer exception extends. Like that, there are so many predefined. There are so many predefined classes what you have. Okay, one is this way. This is also extending. This is also extending. This is also extending, and this is also extending. All these all are extending the exception class. I repeat, arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception extends exception. Exception extends throwable. What type of inheritance it is? Arithmetic exception extends exception. Exception extends throwable. What type of inheritance? Multi-level. Grandfather, father, and child. This guy is a child, and this guy is a father, and this guy is a grandfather. Grandfather means super class for all the mostly asked question. When they start exception handling, straight away some people ask what is exception handling, why we need to handle it, or some people will directly ask you what is the super class of all the exception classes. What is the super class? Throwable. Always remember this. Mostly interview ask question. What is the super class for all the exception classes? Throwable is the super class. Okay. Any questions online, folks? Okay, Vaideh, you have a question, just try to put it in a chat window. I will try to clarify. Now, exception handling can be used using below keywords. Exception handling will be used 5 keywords. One is try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. Mostly interview ask question, difference between catch and finally. Difference between catch and finally, that I will tell you. Don't need to note down now. I will explain you example. Then I will also explain the finally example. Then you make a note. It will be easy to understand. Okay. Now, what is the syntax for try? If you think any lines of the code, might throw an exception. I have written some 1,000 lines of the code. Whenever I have written some 1,000 lines of the code, I think only few lines, line number 5 to 9. Example I'm telling, may throw an exception. Or I'm asking line number 5 to 9. I'm asking the user enter number 1, enter number 2, enter. Then I'm trying to do division by 0. There are chances that the user may enter a 0, right? I put that code in try block. Any code you think it might throw an exception, put that code in a try block. So try is a block. See, I'm putting directly statement 20 by 0. I'm thinking the user might enter a 0. I don't know. In case if user is entering the 0, my program will terminate. Is that correct? My program will terminate. I don't want my program to terminate. That's why I'm putting this code in my try block. That's why I'm putting this code in the try block. So whenever there is now, every try block must have a catch block. Don't think you can put a try without catch. Don't think you can put catch without try. These are to be always together. Try some lines of code, put a catch block, under catch block, exception class. I said all exceptions are what? Predefined classes. Whatever exception it is throwing are predefined classes. Now I'm saying catch exception, class name, space, reference. Now example in the above line, what type of exception it is throwing? Arithmetic exception. Every class is a predefined, sorry, every exception is a predefined class. Now here what it is throwing, what type of exception? Arithmetic exception. In the class you have to put your arithmetic exception. Now you need to write the code handle exception here. So whatever you wanted to handle, now there is an exception. Example, I'm asking the user to enter number 1. I'm asking user to enter, like say, let me write otherwise here. Example, here I'm asking user enter value for A, then enter value for B. I'm saying I'm declaring one variable called int. By default it takes capital letter. Always remember Java is a case sensitive. Case sensitive means there is a difference between capital letter and the small letter. Now I'm saying int division equal to A by B. Now let's understand the value for A is entered by user is 10. Value for B is 0. Now do you think it will throw an exception here? Do you think it will throw an exception? It will throw an exception. What type of exception it is going to throw? Arithmetic exception. So what should be my catch here? My catch should be arithmetic exception. Reference means some reference variable you can give. Is it clear now? What is a try block? Any lines of the code, if you think that might throw any lines of code, if you think that might throw an exception, any lines of code, if you think it might throw an exception, put that lines of code in try block. Try is a block which contains the code which might throw an exception, exception. Okay. Now you have a catch block. What type of exception it is throwing? It is throwing arithmetic exception. So it is just going to put a catch block. Okay. Now we'll write one example. Can you please allow me to talk to you at the end of the class? Yeah, by the way, I'll unmute you. No issues. Okay. Now you have exception. You think it might throw an exception. Put that code in a try block and you have a catch block. In the catch block, you have to put a code which you wanted to handle. So what should I handle the code here? See, because I'll explain you what should be my code here. Again, I have to put the same code. So what calculator displayed? Cannot divided by 0. Now I will put one message here saying system.out.println cannot divided by 0. Then I would say please enter value other than 0. I'll put this message. I'll put this message to the end user. I'll put this message to the end user. And then again, see when I'm saying cannot divide by 0, again I have to ask the user to enter the values. So that code I have to put it here. Again, I will ask the user to enter the value for A, enter the value for B, again do the division because you are not able to do the division. Are you guys getting? You are not able to do the division because it was entering division by 0. It was entering division by 0. So handling means in catch block, if exception happens, what do you wanted to do? Catch block, in case if exception happens, what do you wanted to do? I'm giving one example. First time when a user is entering what? 0. So what it is doing? If you don't handle it, it will terminate your program. Now I'm handling it, so it will not terminate your program. So what it will display? It will always remember whenever there is an exception. Now this line is happening the exception here. This line is throwing the exception. Whenever there is an exception, it immediately comes to the catch block. Whenever there is an exception, it immediately comes to the catch block. In the catch block, you have to specify what type of exception. What type of exception it is? Arithmetic exception. So you have to put the arithmetic exception here, right? And then you have to specify what you wanted to handle in the catch block. What I wanted to handle, again ask the user, display a message, like simple, I'll open the calculator again. So what these guys are doing? 10 by 0. Now I can understand. Okay, let's say example, I am not good in maths. I don't know that I should do division by 0. So I entered by 0. Then it is saying cannot enter divided by 0. Then again I have to ask the user to enter the value without 0. That's the code you need to handle in the catch block. Always remember, try is a block which contain a code. Try is a block which contain a code which you think it may throw an exception. It may throw an exception. Put that code in the try block. So whenever there is an exception, it will automatically come to catch block. Catch is a block which what you wanted to do. What you wanted to do if there is a exception. That's what you need to write it in a catch block. Okay. Now we'll write one example here. Okay. We'll go one by one. First, we are trying to understand try block and the catch block. Mostly today we'll see if we can cover. Finally, we'll see. If not, we'll go tomorrow also. No issues. Right click, new, class. What is this example? Try example. So I'll put try. Always give class name meaningful name. Always remember class name should start with capital letter. If your class name is having more than one word, first letter of the next word should be capital letter. Example, first name. F should be capital. N should be N. Name, second word. Employee details. E should be capital. D should be two words. One is employee, another one is details. D. So D should be capital. Just check this checkbox, click on finish. Then I'll say int x equal to 10 divided by 0. First I'm showing you without exception handling. First I'm trying to show you without exception handling. Now I'll put system.out.print. I'll say after exception. Do you think this line will execute? Now let's try to run it. Just try to run it. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to do division by 0. And I know it is an exception. I also know it will throw runtime error. But I wanted to show you with handling, without handling, how it would be. Now run it. Line number 8 will not execute. Why it will not execute? Because there is an exception. Sorry, I need to say divided by 0. Sure, you guys are calm watching and not telling anything. I said division by 0, but I'm not doing division by 0. I'm just giving a value. Now it executed after exception. Because there was no exception, it is continued execution. Now you have exception, try to run it. Is it executing line number 8? Why? Line number 7 is having a exception, right? So what it is saying, exception in thread domain, java.lang.arithmetic exception. What does it mean? We discussed packages, fully qualified name. Arithmetic exception is what? Predefined class. Arithmetic exception is predefined class. This exception is available under which package? Java.lang. lang. Java.lang is a package in which you have a arithmetic exception. Here I have only few lines of the code. Here I have only few lines of the code, so I can understand. But if you go in real-time project, you will have huge lines of code, like 5,000, 10,000 or 20,000 lines of code will be there. Don't think all 20,000 lines you have to write it. It's all testers code I'm giving you. Now, how do I identify which line it is having exception? See in the bottom, it is giving you line number also. It's clearly giving what is the program name? Try. In a program called try.java, in a class called try.java, under that line number 7 is having a exception. Just click it here. It will directly take you to the line in which line you have a exception so that you can fix it. Okay. Now what is happening if I don't handle the exception? Program is terminating. Do you think the system.out.println executing? Why? Because program is terminating. Why it is terminating? Because there is a exception. Wherever exception, program will automatically terminate. It is called abnormal flow of the application. It is not allowing normal flow. Normal flow means all lines of code. But what it is doing, it is not allowing me to execute all lines of code because there is a exception. There is an exception that is happening at the runtime. Okay. Now I'll put this line of the code. I said, what is a try? Try is a block in which you guys can put your code which might throw an exception. Try is a block which might throw an exception. Any lines of code you think it might throw an exception, you try to put that line of the code in the catch block. Now immediately what I have to do, see it is giving me an error because there is no catch block. So I have to put what? Catch. Syntax. Arithmetic exception type. What type of exception? Arithmetic exception. Now I have to put some code. What do you wanted to handle? I will just display system dot out dot print I'm just throwing a message division by 0. Why it is throwing an exception? I'm just putting that message here. Now this line will execute. No. Who is that? Someone saying very confidently no. Why it will not execute? What is the purpose of exception handling? To continue all lines of code. Exception handling purpose is what? To continue all lines of code. How many lines you have? 16. So line number 16. Previously that system.out executed. No, because it was terminating your program. Why it was not terminating? Sorry, why it was terminating? Because it is throwing an exception. Now try to run it. It will execute that line also. What happened? Sorry. Print or println, there is no difference, right? Only line it will print it in the next line. Why it is? Yeah, it is, see, it is executing after exception. Yeah, correct. Println I have to put it. That's why it is printing it. Println. It is printing, but we are not understanding what it is printing. Just try to run it. If you don't handle the exception, what will happen? It will terminate your program. If you don't handle the exception, it is going to terminate your program. If you know exception there in coding, we can correct while writing coding instead of try. Yeah, Bhagya, that correct understanding. So I'm just to explain, I'm deliberately putting division by 0, but in real time, there are so many types of exception which I will explain you, then you will understand. See, no one wanted to deliberately write a code which should throw an exception. No one wanted to write it. Sometimes it is not in your hand. Sometimes it is data is coming from end user. Then you cannot control what end user is asking to do it, right? Now this is try and catch. I repeat, try should have a catch block. Try should always have Catch block. In catch block, you have to specify what type of exception it is throwing. This example, it is throwing division by 0. So it comes under what? It comes under arithmetic exception. So what exception? Now I wanted to know what exception it is throwing. So this line is throwing an exception. Are you guys getting it? This line is throwing some exception. Whenever throwing, JVM is going to throw an exception. Where what JVM will do, Java Virtual Machine, it will go executing line by line. In whichever line it is throwing exception, it will remember that line number and it will throw an exception. Previously, it was showing the line number 7. It will remember that line number and it will also throw the exception. Now, whatever exception is thrown will be stored in E. Will be stored in, whenever system is throwing an exception, all the time that exception will be saved in E. Now, I wanted to know what E is having. System.out. Just print, I'll just say value of the E. Now, what exception? Line number, it is throwing an exception. It will throw whatever exception it is thrown. That exception will be stored in variable called E. Just try to run it. What it will show? It will give you same thing. Java.lang. Arithmetic exception. See value of the E. What it is printing? Just give some space here. What is the value it is printing? What the exception it is throwing? It is throwing java.lang. Arithmetic exception division by 0. Previously it was showed in red color. Why? Because you did not handle it. So it is terminating your program. Whichever you see in the red color, you understand that it is an exception which you have not handled. Okay. Is it clear or any questions? Try is a block which you will put your coding. You don't need to put entire coding. You don't need to put entire coding in try block. You put only the code which might throw an exception. You don't need to put entire code in the try block. Okay. Now, we did not give word Java. How we got it? No. We see who will throw an exception? JVM. At what time? Runtime. Is it throwing any compilation errors here? There is no compilation errors. Wherever you see there is a compilation, compiler will stop you. It will give a compilation error. Do you have any compilation errors here? No. I have to give a semicolon. I'm giving semicolon. Whatever I have to declare a variable, I'm declaring a variable. There is nothing wrong syntax point of view, right? So why it is giving Java? What type of exception it is throwing? Whenever you are running, it is throwing some exception. What type of exception? Arithmetic exception. What is arithmetic exception? Predefined class. This class is available under where? In which package? Java.lang. So that's why it is giving you java.lang. Arithmetic exception. Any questions? Concept is same. When I say any questions, I am expecting some question from you. Think and I'll give you 1 minute. Think and ask me the question. If you don't get it anyhow, I will ask the question. Doing division by 0. Huh? So most of the time, a trainer will be very happy if you're not asking any questions. Most of the time, because I can complete and done. Generally, you should think and ask me the questions. If you don't ask me, I'll sit in your place, then I'll ask you the question. I don't need to sit there. I mean, I'll play the student role and ask. Before catch, can we find the exception type? No, you cannot find. Okay, so if we know, okay, because before the catch, can we find exception type? No, you cannot find. Second one, in line number 14, we have plus E, we got E if we give, okay. Sequence of try and catch. There is nothing sequence. You have to put some try, put some coding, then immediately you have to put the catch. You cannot put catch first and then try. That's a sequence. Try, then catch. Plus E, do we get some output? Yeah, we are printing the value of E, right? That's what we are doing. Before the catch, can we find the exception? No. Okay. How many tries we can have? You can have multiple tries, no issues. But how do we know what type of exception? That's a good question. Now I said line here has the exception. This is having some exception. So it is terminating my program. Now I have a question. After this line, I think I will put this line of the code. I was expecting is the after exception, if there is some code. In try block, there is some code, right? Now, first line itself is throwing an exception. First line itself is, do you think the second line will execute again? The system.out.println? That was the question I was expecting. Whenever you have a try block, whenever you have a try block, whenever you have some lines of code in try block, the line number 1 or it doesn't matter which line, if there is an exception, example here, there is an exception. There is a exception. It will immediately go to catch block. It will not come and execute this line. Always remember after in if block, after exception, the code will not execute. It will automatically go to the catch block. That is the reason what I have put in this example. First, what I'm asking user enter value for A, enter value for B, and you are doing an exception. Let's say this is the next line. It will not execute this line because there is a exception. It will terminate your program, not terminate. It will go to the catch block immediately. That's why again I'm putting user to enter value for A, value for B. Why I'm writing this code again? Because I want user to enter data again. Is it clear? I wanted to enter the data, ask the user to enter it again. Why? Because it will not go to the try block again. It will not execute whatever after exception. After exception, whatever you have here, this line will not be executed. Any lines of code after exception in the try block will not be executed. It will go to catch block, it execute the catch block, and it continues remaining lines of the code, but it will not execute. Now try to run it. It will not execute. Do you think it is executing after exception? It will not, because line number here having an exception, you're handling it, it comes to the catch block. Don't think after exception it will execute the next line in the try block. It will immediately go to the catch block. Very big question. Okay, when will I put my code which is mandatory irrespective of catch and try? Where will I put code? Right, normal program only. Okay, right, say you are writing 1,000 lines of code. Out of 1,000, maybe 4 lines or 5 lines of code might throw an exception. Put only those 4 lines of code in try block. Remaining as usual, you write it. Okay. How many try and catch block can we have inside the single function? We did not define the E as int or string. Also, assign any value, how it is binding and printing. See, it's just a variable name. Arithmetic exception is what predefined class. It's just like an object. Why I'm not calling it as object? Because I'm not using equal to new arithmetic exception. That time it will become a object. Same like how you created an OBJ. I'm just giving some variable reference name. This is not called as a object. Why it is not called object? Because I'm not saying equal to new object. Okay. Why I'm saying E is a reference variable, it is not a object. Why I'm using this E? Just to store the exception, whatever it is thrown. Entire world across the globe, they use variable, reference variable as E only. You take architect code, exception, space, variable, sorry, reference number. They always give name as a E only. So you all guys also try to follow the same standards. Whenever you're writing an exception, catch block, In catch block, specify type of exception, then put the E. Okay. Is it clear? I'll put it in a comment. This line will not be executed. You understood why it will not executed, right? Because there is a exception. Otherwise, I will also write because okay. Now, can I have multiple catch blocks? Now, how many try we are having? One try. How many catch blocks? One catch block. Now, can I write multiple catch blocks? Can one try can have multiple catches? Answer is yes. You can have multiple catch blocks. Now, I have multiple. Let's write. I'll copy this anyhow. It's going to be the same thing. I'll copy this. I'll create one more example. I'll create one more example. Multiple catch. I'll put okay this code, and I'll put one more catch block. I'll put this catch as array index out of bounds. Something spelling. It's okay. Maybe some spelling mistake somewhere here and there. Yeah, let me copy paste it. Okay, array index out of bounds exception. Now, you understood the concept, right? This one I no need to put in every example. Once try block gets exception, it will automatically terminate your. It will not go to the next line in the try block. It immediately goes to catch block. Now here I'll write one more code. Here I'll write int x of equal to new int of 5. Now here I would say x of 9 equal to 10 by 0. No need to declare it again. You can use try block, can be used difference. Yeah, you can use, see, try, don't get confused. It's normal code only. I'm not writing any special code. I'm writing normal code only. I'm putting 1 or 2 lines of code in try block. That's all, right? You can declare variables also. See, I'm declaring a variable here. I'm declaring variable. Now, how many catch blocks you have? See, my try lines of code might throw arithmetic exception, or it might throw array index out of bounds exception. So what I'm thinking, it might throw arithmetic exception, or it might throw array index out of bounds exception. Now, don't think both the catch blocks will be executed. Don't think both catch blocks will be executed. At a time only, always remember, at a time only one exception will happen. At a time only one exception, only one catch will execute. Which catch it will execute? Type of exception, what it is getting. If it is getting arithmetic exception, it will go to catch arithmetic exception. If it is getting array index out of bounds exception, it will go to the catch called array index out of bounds. Now, can you guys tell me which, again, I'm repeating, don't think multiple catch can execute. At a time, only one exception will occur. Only one exception catch will execute. Don't think two catch blocks will be executed. Now, which catch will execute here? Array index out of bounds. Why? How many exceptions you are having? How many exceptions you are getting? 2 exceptions. You are getting 2 exception. One is line number 10. How many exceptions it is having? Line number 10. One exception or two exceptions? Only one or two? Read it. Laughing. Huh? One or two? How many exceptions you are having there? What is your array size? 9. Who said 9? I think I have to take basics again. What is size of array? 5. What is the value you are trying to store? Where you are trying to store? 9. You have a of 9. What is the maximum size? 4. What is the 5? Size of 5 array is what? 5. Means maximum is 0 to 4. What is the maximum size? What I can store is the 4. A of 4. What I am trying to do here? A of 9. Is there any index called A of 9? There is no index called A of 9. Then that is one exception. What type of exception it is? Array index out of bounds exception. What I am saying equal to 10 by what it is? Division by 0. One line. How many exceptions it is triggering? Two exception. One is array index out of bounds exception. Another one is mostly interview ask question. They will write this code on the board. Most of the time, whenever you go for interview, they will have pen and paper and they will also marker and board. It's sometimes they write it in a paper and ask you which catch it is going to execute. Not they will write it on the board and ask you which one. But here two exceptions are occurring, right? Why can't it execute both? That you need to understand the logic here. How many exceptions happening? Two. One is array index out of bounds. One is arithmetic exception. That's why one I am putting as arithmetic. One I am putting as a array index out of bounds exception. Some technology, right? Maths, Bartsman or that. Which one it will take first? First it will do division by 0 or it will go to x of 9, then it will come to here. Understand that concept of mass. Can someone tell me loudly what is that called? Bodman. Bodman. So where it will go first? It will go to, see guys, catch block, try block, there is nothing special. Normal code. You want to write a function in a catch block, write it. You want to declare variables, declare it. It's like a normal code only. Don't think catch is something, a special thing that you have. Okay. It's a normal only. Bodmas rule. So according to Bodmas rule, where it will come first? It will come from right to left, right? So what you have in the right side? 10 by 0. 10 by 0 means it is triggering what exception? Arithmetic exception. It is immediately triggering. It is immediately. Then if there is no exception here, then it will check whether x of 9 is available or not. First, what it will do, it will calculate the division. First, what it is trying to do, it is calculating the value. Some operation you are doing, right? 10 by 0. It means division by 0. Which exception is triggering first? Arithmetic. Is it going to index of 9 available or not? It immediately throwing an exception in here. It immediately throwing the exception, division by 0. It is immediately throwing the exception called division by 0. So what it will do? It will not check whether x of 9 is available or not. It is not going to check x of 9 is available or not. So immediately got the exception. At a time only one exception will occur and catch block will execute only one catch block. So which one it will execute now? Arithmetic exception. Don't think this catch I'm writing first. That's why it is executing arithmetic exception. Just to avoid even that thinking also, I'll just take this from here and I'll put it here. Okay, first you are what? Okay, it will come to this line number and it tries to do the calculation, which is division by 0. It immediately triggers it immediately triggers the exception. First it comes to check the first catch block. First it checks First catch block. What is an exception? Arithmetic exception. Is it matching? Like switch case. You have a switch, case is matching, it will execute that case. Same concept. If this arithmetic exception, this first one, no. So what is the second one? It will not match. First catch will not match. Then where it will go? It will go to the second catch. It compares what is the exception, what is the catch exception type. Second catch, what you are putting? Arithmetic exception only. Is it matching? It is matching. So it is going to execute arithmetic exception. So yeah, let it be. It is going to execute this. It will not execute this. I think this I have to change. Let me remove it. I'll just put it division by 0. This one I'll put it as yeah, let's delete this. And this one I'll put it as this one I'll put it as okay, just run it. Which one, where it will go? It will go to the catch block of arithmetic. I repeat, at a time, only one exception will trigger, not both. At a time, only one exception will trigger. It is go and execute the one catch block only. You can, one try can have multiple catch blocks. One try can have multiple catch block. If you have a multiple catch block, it is going to execute at a time only one catch block. Which catch? Depending upon type of exception you are putting and depending upon catch what you are putting it here. Okay. Database testing is mandatory to learn for manual and automation. I don't think database is mandatory. Okay. If you have, see, if the requirement, if job requires complete database testing, they will clearly tell you database testing is needed, where they will ask you some database related queries. Okay. Now what I would do, I would put some division by 1. Now which catch it will execute? Array index out of bounds. Why? Because there is no division by 0. Now it performs division by 0, sorry, division by 1. There is no exception. So where it will go now? It will try to store the result in a of 9. Now a of 9 is fine, not available. Run it. Now where it will go? Array index. Is it clear? One try can have multiple catch blocks. At a time, only one exception will trigger, and at a time, only one catch will execute. It will not execute both the catches. Okay. Is it clear? Again, any questions? I am expecting one question from you. Think, I'll give you 1 minute or so. Just think about it and let me. 10 by 1 also arithmetic exception. It's not that you cannot do division by 0, but we can do division by 1, right? It is not arithmetic expression. Okay. And then minus 10 you will get as a result. Okay. If you are getting confused 10 by 1, let's understand the concept, not the mass here. Okay. What is the question? No question. Now here I know it might throw an arithmetic exception or it might throw array index out of bounds exception. That's why how many catches I'm putting? 2 catches. One for arithmetic, one for array index out of bounds exception. What if I don't know what type of exception? Simplest question. I don't know why you are not getting that. What if I don't know what type of exception it is throwing? I don't know. Maybe null pointer exception, maybe array index exception, maybe arithmetic exception, maybe number formatting, whatever. I don't know what type of exception it is throwing. If I know what type of exception, I can easily correct the code. As simple as if I know what type of exception, I can simply correct my code. I don't want to write a code deliberately to throw an exception, right? Now, what is, you got my question? I don't know what type of exception my code will throw. I don't know what type of exception it might throw an exception. Just go to this diagram. What is a superclass? Throwable. Under that, what you have? Exception. Exception is having what? All types of exception. So it means that any type of exception can be handled by exception class. Any type of the exception can be handled by exception class. Mostly asked question. Make a note. Make a note. Mark it as interview asked question. What if I don't know? What if I don't know? What if I don't know? What type of exception? What if I don't know? What type of exception? What if I don't know? What type of exception is thrown by the code? What if I don't know what type of exception is thrown by code? Is thrown by code. Now, what is the answer? Exception. Exception is the class which will handle all type of exceptions. Now, what I will do, I'll put one more catch. I'll put one more catch called. What type of exception I have to put it here? Now, this catch, this exception class can handle any type of exception. He or she is the boss, can handle anything. Exception is the boss which can handle any type of exception. No one will write a coding to throw exception. If I know what type of exception, I can correct my code. I think someone asked this question. Bhavani, I don't know, someone asked this question. So if I know the exception, I will write proper coding without throwing an exception. But if I don't know what type of exception it is throwing, then which class I have to use? Exception class. Exception class can handle any type of exception. Now, why it is throwing error at line number 16? As soon as I add one more catch, can I add 3 catches? You can write any number of catches. There is no restriction. So why immediately line number 16 is throwing an error? Also one more line number 20 also throwing an error. Why? Painting. Why it will throw? What is exception? Is a predefined class. What exception can handle? All types of. What type of exception it is throwing in this code? What type of exception it is throwing? Array index out of bounds. Array index out of bounds. Can exception class handle that? Exception class can handle that, right? Now, if it is throwing arithmetic exception, example, can exception class handle the arithmetic exception? Let's say your code is throwing null pointer exception. Can exception class can handle? Any type of exception can be handled by exception class. Then why error in line number 16? Now you tell me. Not contains, handles. Only one catch is enough. Read the message. Unreachable code. What it is saying? Is it visible? Okay, I'll read it. So what it is saying, unreachable catch block. It is saying unreachable catch block for array index out of bounds exception. It is already handled by the catch block for exception. It is saying you already exception class can handle any type of exception. That is why it is saying this catch block is not reachable. Why it is unreachable? Because it is already handled. You are putting the exception as the first catch block. It means you are already handling it. So why you want another catch, another two catches? Do you think it is reachable? Unreachable. At a time, how many catch blocks it will execute? Only one. How many catch blocks you have? 3. Which catch block will execute? Exception, which is in the first catch block. So why you think you need to have another 2 catch blocks? Why you think you need to have another 2 catch blocks when the first catch itself is able to handle it? Because exception class. That's why it is saying unreachable block. Is it clear? They will also ask you this question in interview. They will write some coding. They will put exception catch in the first. Now, can I put it in the last? Always remember, if you guys are using the catch of exception, you should put that catch always in the last. You should not put the exception class in the first, because it will give an error saying unreachable catch block. So there is a sequence how to use the catch block. There is no such sequence. Only one rule you have to remember is whenever you are putting the exception catch, that should be the last catch. That's why it is not giving any error. Always remember, catch block will execute only if there is an error. If there is no error, catch block will not execute. You can put exception is the class which can handle any type of exception. It can handle any type of exception. So you can put catch block with the exception class, but that should be the last one. Okay. Okay. Now try to execute it. If it is throwing any array index out of bounds, why it is going array index of bounds? Because you are getting an exception of array index out of bounds exception. It will check sequentially. It will go to the first catch. If it is matching, it will execute that. If it is not matching, go to the second catch block. Even if that is matching, exception is already there. It will always execute the exception block. This is already written in my document. You don't need to note down. This I already mentioned it in the here. Rules. At a time, only one exception is occurred. And at a time, only one catch block is executed. Rule number 1. Rule number 2. All catch blocks must be ordered. All catch blocks must be ordered from most specific to most general. Specific to array index out of bounds exception. Specific to arithmetic exception. Then common, you wanted to execute common code, then put that under exception. That is, catch for arithmetic must come before catch for exception. Okay. So we will stop it here for today. If they are asking any questions on the interview related to, you will definitely get 2 to 3 questions on the exception handling. You will definitely